Chapter 17. Once Mother and I had the slickers on and buttoned, we reached up inside and took our blouse and Levi's lost when it quit raining. Charlie hung our clothes outside on a tree to dry. In all too short a time, he brought them back in. Mother and I dressed underneath the tent like slickers. The pockets of my Levi's were still a bit damp, but everything else was dry. Back in San Francisco, the servants would hang a thin cloth outside all day and never dried. Here in the hot Texas sun, even thick denim was nearly dry in less than 2 hours. When I was dressed, I took up the slicker and started to take it back to Dan. David jumped up from where he was sitting. He took it to the ranger for me. I almost laughed at the way he was acting, only I didn't. When Mother took off her slicker, both Marshall and Benton and Mr. Garner came over. Dan and I heading back to San Antonio. Marshall, Benton said, we have to pass through Kerrville. That's where the closest telegraph is. I'll wire your husband and let him know you and your daughter are safe. Mother smiled and patted him on the back of the hand as he took his slicker. Thank you so much. He'll be happy to wire you the reward money you said he mentioned in the telegram. Marshall Benton shook his head. That's not necessary. I'll just let him know you're safe. He would want you to have it, she assured him. It would make me happy too. Marshall Benton shrugged. In that case, I'll split it with the Ranger Park. He's done nothing this whole trip but bellyache about how poor Texas Ranger pay is. Thank you, ma'am. I would like to offer you and your party the hospitality of my ranch. Stan Garner's deep, mellow voice seemed to roll through the warm, safe cabin. Isolated as we are, my wife and children would love the company. You're welcome to stay as long as you want, perhaps for a day or so. Mother smiled. We could use the rest, then we must press on. We have to find the buffalo. Mr. Garner shook his head. No need. We know where they are. Saw them yesterday. Mother's face brightened. There's only about 18 of the woolly beasts left, but they're in a little valley over in the Frio River. We spotted them yesterday afternoon when we stopped to water our horses. Good grass and water, so if the storm didn't spook them, they'll be in the same spot for a while. It's only a day's ride from the ranch house too. I'll even get my hands to help you round them up when your wagons and lumber arrive. Mother wrapped her arms around Mr. Garner's neck and kissed him right in the cheek, and then squealed and jumped up and down like a little schoolgirl. Then she hugged me. Isn't that marvellous news, Amanda? He knows where they are. We found the buffalo. Isn't it wonderful? Yes, Mother answered, trying to calm her. I wish you wouldn't embarrass me by acting so silly and childish. I'm glad that we finally found them. We went out and got our horses. Before the two lawmen parted company with us, Dan Park rode over. He brought his horses right up next to Sergeant me. With a broad sweeping motion, he removed his hat and bowed. It was indeed a pleasure to meet you all, Miss Guthridge. He seemed to stretch out the word pleasure. I felt myself blush. I hope you and your mother find your buffalo, and I hope you have a safe and pleasant journey. He put his hat back on and glanced over his shoulder at David. Keep a watchful eye on the boy over there. You're a very attractive young woman. I think he's got eyes for you. Dan Parker winked at me. I nodded, and without realizing I winked back. I felt my cheeks turn red again. Attractive young woman. His words clung to my ears as tight and sweet as honey sticks to the comb. His words made my insides tingle. I sat up very proud and straight on Sarge's back. I liked it even more that he noticed how David was acting. Before, as far as I knew, David had no interest in me whatsoever. In fact, I didn't think he liked me, but the way he acted back in the cabin was all I could think about. I didn't pay any attention to the scenery as we rode to Mr. Garner's ranch. I didn't remember that we hadn't eaten all day. I didn't even think about the raging storm as it roared and tumbled away in the distance. I just smiled to myself and thought about how protective and jealous David had acted. I remembered how his deep blue eyes turned almost black when he glared at Dan Park. I sighed as I thought about how he held me for a time after he wrapped the slick around me with his brown strong arms. Maybe this trip wasn't a bad idea after all. I was startled when we topped a little hill and saw the Garner range in the valley before us. I was startled because it was sunset, yet it seemed like we'd only been on the trail for a few minutes. I was startled because the house was so big and nice, and I was expected to see nothing so grand this far from civilization. I was startled by all the houses and barns and buildings around it, because it seemed like a small town than a ranch. It seemed more like a small town than a ranch, and if I was startled by the outside of the Garner ranch, I was downright shocked when we got inside. Chapter 18. Miss Garner met us at the front door. She was a tall, slender Mexican woman with dark eyes and black hair. I could tell that she was most excited and happy to see her husband. But when she noticed he had brought guests, she remained quite reserved and formal. A girl about my age, dressed in a blue cotton blouse and skirt, followed her to the front porch. Mrs. Garner instructed her to go tell someone named Stella that there would be guests for supper. Then, as the girl scurried off, Mrs. Garner gave her husband a little kiss on the cheek and introduced herself to us. Her name was Rosa. She just barely had time to tell us her name when 2 children appeared at the open doorway. A girl of 9 or so and a little boy of 6 came charging through the open door, not nearly as reserved as their mother. They leapt for Mr. Garner. Somehow he caught one in each arm and held them as they hugged and kissed him and shouted, "Daddy, Daddy, Daddy." He kissed them back and laughed, that deep rolling laugh. Then he set them down, pat both on the bottom, and told them to go to help Stella with supper. Obediently they raced off. Mr. Garner introduced everyone to his wife. I was amazed how he could remember all of our names. She motioned us to come in. Allow me to give you a very brief tour of the house so you'll feel a bit more at home. Her eyes danced when she smiled. Then I'll show you to your rooms. You must be exhausted from so long on the trail. David, Les, and Charlie sort of hesitated at the door. You want to show us where the bunkhouse is, sir? David asked. Mr. Garner made a short, sort of snorting sound. When I invited you to be my guest, he said, I invite all of you. Besides, we don't have a bunkhouse. All the hands that work for me are family men. Each has his own house. You all will stay with us. Got plenty of room in the old shack. The huge house had an elegance that was beyond belief. The furnishing was as new and lovely as anything I had seen on Nob Hill. There were paintings on the walls, fine paintings of high quality. Sculptures of marble lined the entry and was tastefully placed about the large living room. To our left as we came in was a music room. A huge grand piano stood on the centre of the room. Beside it was a harp covered with gold inlay. Mrs. Garner pointed down a long hall. Study, library, and kitchen are down that way. I'll show them to you later. Now I know you love to knock some of the trail dust off. I'll take you to your rooms. A double staircase of dark red mahogany swept down on both sides of the entry. We climbed the tall, elegant staircase at the top Mr. Garner had the men follow him to the right. We followed Mrs. Garner to the left. A ways down the hall she opened a door. This is your room, she said to Mother. Oh, how beautiful, Mother gasped. She rushed into the large bedroom. Mrs. Garner and I followed her, and when I got inside I could see what all Mother's excitement was about. A brass bed was against the far wall of the bedroom. It was an enormous thing with a huge overstuffed goose-down quilt. A real bed, Mother squealed. It's been so long, I can't believe it. She dropped her bedroll on the floor and leaped on top of the mattress. Springs, Mother's almost screamed. Mrs. Garner laughed. I know how you feel, dear, she said. I've spent a few weeks on the trail myself over the last 40 years. She nudged me with her elbow. Come on, Amanda, I'll show you to your room. It's right next door. We walked through a bathroom between the 2 bedrooms. There was a sink with a tap for hot and cold water, a porcelain stool, and a big cast iron tub. My heart flooded at the thought of a hot tub. My room, though not quite as large as Mother's, was much, much nicer. It was painted pink, and there was crisp, clean pink drapes on the windows. There was a large pink carpet on the hardwood floors, and a big overstuffed pink quilt on my bed. I loved it. A bathtub, I heard Mother shriek behind us. A real bathtub. Rosa and I went back to the bathroom. She leaned over and put a rubber stop in the drain of the tub. Then she turned on the faucet with a blue H on the handle. You won't have to wait for someone to heat water and bring it up, Rosa smiled proudly. Along with being a loving husband and father, Mr. Garner is also quite an accomplished engineer. Behind the house there are 10 water towers. My husband built them wide and shallow. He then covered the bottoms with black tar and black paint to help absorb heat from the sun. The pump works off a couple of windmills he built. Except during a colder set of winter, we always have more than enough hot water. Mother could only shake her head. I'm indeed impressed. Before Mrs. Garner left us, she took a long, hard look at Mother. We're about the same size, she nodded. Then she looked around Mother at me. Her eyes squinted as she stared at me for a moment. Think we can find you something to wear, Amanda. I'll send Tina up with some clothes. Like I said, I've spent some time on the trail. I know what it's like to wear those stuffs. Some rough, stiff denim Levi's all the time. Oh, she stopped and turned to us before closing the door. Bathrobes are in the little doorway beside the sink, and you'll find toothbrushes and baking soda in that cabinet. Toothbrushes? I yanked over the cabinet. Yes, my sigh was almost a swoon. There were 2 real toothbrushes. They had real wooden handles and real bristles. I brushed and brushed my teeth. The baking soda tasted much, much better than the lye soap. I could have stayed in the bath for hours, but knowing we were expected for supper, I forced myself to get out and dry off. I slipped on a white terry cloth bathrobe from the little doorway beside the sink and brushed my teeth again. In my room, 3 beautiful cotton dresses were laid out in my bed. I picked the red one with the black lace. I chose it as a compliment to our hostess because it looked very Spanish. I thought she might be flattered if I wore it. It was also quite daring. The neckline plunged in a deep V in the front and the back. Then I When I pulled it on, I kept shrugging at my shoulders, pulled it higher. Then I looked at myself in the full-length mirror beside the bed. The red dress fitted perfectly. The waist fit snug. I liked it. David liked it too. When he saw me coming from the staircase, his eyes almost popped. He smiled too. Then catching himself, he tried to act like he didn't notice how nice I looked. Rosa complimented me on my choice. She also told Mother how stunning she looked in the blue gingham gown that had been left for her. The men had on clean white shirts and clean brown pants. Charlie's pants were a tiny bit too long, but all three of them looked very nice and crisp. Supper was lovely. A white girl and two Mexican girls served fresh corn on the cob, green beans, roast beef, lettuce and carrots. We had real tea to drink and lemonade too. David kept sneaking looks in my direction when he thought I wasn't watching. That made the meal even better. After supper, we went to the music room. We visited for a while, and Mr. Garner talked Rosa into playing the piano for us. She was very good, and she talked Mr. Garner into accompanying her on the harp. Although he was reluctant at first, I was amazed at how well both of them played. The performers I had heard in San Francisco were nearly as talented as our host and hostess. It was hard to believe that Mr. Garner was the same man we had met in the dark cabin during the terrible thunderstorm. From all intents and purposes, he had looked like some outlaw, crusty, dirty, with a straggly beard and dingy clothes, yet he played the harp like a master. It was late when we left for our rooms. The Garners accompanied us to the staircase, and Rose encouraged all of us to sleep late in the morning. She said that even if we weren't tired, her husband needed his rest. The buffalo would have to wait up a day or so. The three men went up the right side of the double staircase. Mother and I went up the left. As we climbed, I could feel David's eyes on me. About halfway up the stairs, I sucked in my stomach and threw my shoulders way back. I took a deep breath. From the corner of my eye, I could see David stumble on the stairs. He didn't go down, but he had to grab the banners to keep from falling. I looked straight at him and laughed. I guess I shouldn't have. I just couldn't help it. Later, I snuggled into the thick, soft mattress with the springs under it. I couldn't help but laugh again. This had been the longest and almost the most fantastic day of my whole entire life. It would be a day I would remember forever. As I wiggled my head into the big soft pillow and closed my eyes, I thought, this isn't Texas, this is heaven. Chapter 19. Heaven only lasted 4 days. It was a wonderful 4 days though. Mother and I visited with Rosa. She showed us around the ranch, and we talked with some of the families who lived in the house near the big house. David and the others respected Mrs. Garner's request that they do not do anything the first day we were there. Early the second morning, David sent Letts back to Caribou to find Pep and the wagons. He and Mr. Garner rode off towards the Frio River, where Mr. Garner had seen the buffalo. Charlie tried to help the white-haired lady named Stella with the cooking, but she kept running him out of the kitchen. He seemed rather unhappy that he was stuck at the ranch. For some reason, I felt no need to be grown up and proper. Though much older than Jennifer and Thomas Garner, I took the time to play with them and some of the other children who lived there. Tina, whose father was the foreman of the ranch and who was closer to my age, would join us when she wasn't busy helping Stella. We laughed and giggled. We played hide and seek and chase. Once they took me to a big barn with hay in it. We swung from a rope tied to the loft, and I loved the hot bath I took each evening, and I loved the feather bed I slept in, and I loved the room with the pink drapes and pink carpet, and I loved my real toothbrush. David and Mr. Garner returned late the evening of the third day. Les and Pepper arrived with 16 wagons loaded with lumber on the morning of the fourth day. As soon as Les and the wagons were there, it took Mr. Garner only half an hour or so to assemble 20 of his ranch hands, and we left for the Frio. As we rode, I couldn't help but marvel at the sight. Before, there had been 5 of us riding along the Guandalupe searching for sign of the buffalo. Now we looked like a small army moving across the hill. There were 16 wagons, 20 ranch hands and us, all strung out, sometimes searching from the top of one hill to the top of another. David and Mr. Garner led the way. Mrs. Garner and the children had come too. They rode with Mother and me. Behind me were Charlie and Les, and Mr. Garner's hands. The wagon brought up the rear. We reached the Frio River before dark. Mother and I had tent to sleep in, as did Mrs. Garner, Jennifer and Thomas. The others slept on bed rolls or in the wagon. The next morning, right after daybreak, David and Mr. Garner came for Mother and me. I barely had time to wipe the sleep from my eyes before they had our horses saddled, and we rode off. We followed the river our ways. Then at a sharp bend, we left the Frio and climbed up to the top of a steep hill. At the crest of the hill, Mr. Garner whispered for us to dismount on foot. We crept up to the edge of a steep climb. As I neared the edge, I couldn't help thinking how strange this place looked. The hill where we stood was a normal Texas hill country hill, at least on the side we had come up. On the other side looked like some great giant had taken a knife and simply cut the small mountain in half. The hill to our right looked the same, as did the ones across the narrow Freer Valley. Mr. Garner put a finger on to his lips and pointed. There, for the first time, I saw the buffalo. Frowning, I tilted my head to the side. They seemed so much smaller than I had expected. Below us, they were not much more than brown lumps scattered across the valley floor. I took a step close to the edge of the cliff. I squinted, trying to see better. Grazing munching grass, the buffalo seemed no more dangerous or ferocious than the small herds of Mr. Garner's cattle. I had seen buffalo before, only in paintings and books. From up here, they did not seem nearly as ominous as I had expected. One of the buffaloes was closer and seemed much larger than the others. I focused on him. Is that a bull? I asked. Suddenly Dave grabbed my arm. Pointing down, he showed me the loose rocks on my left foot. I was a lot closer to the edge than I realized. Gently he pulled me back. Careful, he whispered. Is that a bull buffalo? I repeated. David shushed me. Quiet, he said. Buffalo are weird animals. When I was little, I watched them from a hill while two hired hunters killed a whole herd. The loud sound from their .5 caliber sharps carbine never scared the buffalo. They just stood there watching the others fall, one at a time, waiting their turn to get shot. But the sight of the smell of a man, the sound of voices, even the clatter of falling rocks can send them into a stampede. David eased me to the side of the hill. This was the first time he had really talked to me the whole trip. My skin tingled where his right hand held me just above the elbow. Down there, he said, pointing to the place where we had left the valley. That's where we're going to build the pen. We'll stretch a fence across the valley. There, he pointed again and tried to run them up against the fence. When they turn, we'll have some men hiding over yonder with solid wood panels to use like gates and shut them in. He sighed and let go of my arm. I wish he hadn't. Anyway, that's our plan, he continued. Oh, he kind of joked, suddenly remembering my question. That wasn't a bull you're looking at. The bull's gone. There are only 2 calves this time of year with 18 cows. There should be at least 10 or more calves. Even if David was talking just about buffalo, it was nice to have him talk to me for a change. Where did the bull go? I didn't really care, but with his excitement over the buffalo, I figured it was a good way to keep him talking. David shrugged, probably just wandered off. The bulls do that when they get old. They usually don't last more than 2 to 3 months once they leave the herd. Somehow they seem to sense that their time is drawing near. They leave the herd and wander off by themselves to die. That's sad. I watched the way his blue eyes gazed across the valley. David really was fascinated with the buffalo. I wasn't, but I was fascinated with him. When we talked about the buffalo, there was a dreamy look on his face. His voice was soft and dreamy too. What about the calves? Yeah, I asked, trying to keep the conversation going. Why are there only 2? David shrugged. Like I said, the bull was probably old. So I shrugged back. I don't understand. What do you mean the bull was probably old? What does that have to do with 2 calves instead of 10 calves? His blue eyes fell on me. Instead of that dreamy look, his eyes darted about nervously. I heard a faint gulp sound when he saw that. Oh, he stammered. His eyes kept darting about, never looking at mine. He cleared his throat. Well, never mind. Come on. We need to get to work on the coral. I frowned, still not understanding what I'd said or done that bothered him. He turned his heart towards the horses. I followed him. David, what's the bull being all got to do with? He spun to face me with his head tilted to the side and his hand on his hip. He looked rather disgusted. Go ask your mother. Suddenly I knew what he was talking about. I knew why our pleasant conversation ended so abruptly. One time I asked Daddy where puppies come from. When my cocker spaniel had babies under the cabinet outside the pantry, I said, go ask your mother. Another time I found a nest of baby birds on the edge of our fence, in the hedge by our fence. When I asked the gardener where baby birds came from, he told me, go ask your mother. Men are so silly sometimes, I thought, as I watched David swing into the saddle. Having babies was such a normal, natural thing. Why did men always get so flustered and nervous when they tried to talk about it? Why did they always say stuff like, go ask your mother? There was a part of me that wanted to chase after David and try to get him to answer me, but another part told me not to, so I didn't. Still, the way he acted so nervous and embarrassed tickled me. As we rode back to camp, I watched him and smiled a lot. I never let him catch me, though. A few times as we rode, he would glance over his shoulder at me and frown. Each time he did, I would look very innocent and thoughtful. Embarrassed David had been fun, but listening to him talk had been even nicer. Thanks for listening.